The Central Bank has, in its quarterly report, has issued another damning indictment of the catastrophic failure of government housing policy. But one aspect of it that relates to this subcommittee is how they say deficits in water infrastructure are now a major impediment to us delivering the amount of housing that's necessary to address the housing crisis. Now, I wonder, Taoiseach, is there joined-up thinking going on in terms of what the enormous amount of water usage taken up by data centres and the proliferation of data centres? We already know they use up 20% of our electricity. They're driving up energy costs for ordinary householders. But what about water usage? In Clonee, Meta's data centre, one data centre, uses 2.5 million litres of water per day. That is the same amount of water usage as the entire city of Athlone, with 21,000 people. And we have 82 data centres in this country. So you do the maths, we've 18 more on the way. If the lack of water is now a major impediment to actually putting roofs over the heads of people affected by the housing crisis, how on earth are we continuing to allow data centres that are sucking up vast amounts of the inadequate water resources available to us to go into these data centres to make profits for a tiny number of companies? Are you looking at their water usage and the extent to which it is now actually an obstacle to us having the water necessary to build the homes we need to address the housing crisis?
In terms of the broader picture, the humanitarian assistance scheme, it's not closed yet, is my understanding. Checking out the minute, it's not closed yet, is my understanding. I think it's been extended, and I spoke with the minister this morning about that, but I can clarify that for you. But that's the position as I understand it, and the minister is evaluating the applications that have come in. The scheme is laid down in regulations, Deputy Lawless, so it's not moving and the goalposts aren't shifting. It's actually regulated for the existing scheme now. The Programme for Government has identified the need for a more comprehensive, bespoke scheme to deal with events of the kind of Storm Eowyn. Deputy Moynihan, I would agree fully in terms of the need in terms of energy. And the more fundamental issue is, the agenda is, by the way, for all deputies, is to get to 80% renewables use electricity generation by 2030. That objective has not changed. Deputy Moynihan, Deputy Batchik, Deputy Murphy, and Deputy Boyd Barrett. The suggestion is that we've torn up the climate book. We haven't, or the Climate Act. It's a false assertion. And I do believe, though, that Deputy Moynihan's point is very valid. Because if I'm listening to others in the House, it's goodbye to the economy territory, essentially. Because I was, when I go to the US and other places, and you meet people like Hanley Energy, for example, whose technology is in every data centre in the world, and to employ 800 people, 400 in America and 400 here. But their technology is all about reducing energy and doing its level best to moderate energy output of data centres and so on. When you combine that with the AI revolution, and we've had an essential moratorium, by the way, in the last 3 or 4 years on data centres. Essentially, we've had. Now, if the deputies' offices are suggesting we go another 5 years with a data centre moratorium, we have a real problem with our economy. And I think the deputies' office, Deputy Batchik, Murphy and others, should start thinking very quickly now in terms of how they see the economy evolving, and dispense with all the sound bites and get down to the substance of what happens. Do we think we can just park ourselves to the side of the road while there's massive, profound changes occurring in technology, and just think in 5 or 6 years' time we can pick it all up again? We will not be able to do that. No, we have a huge, through the chair, we have a huge challenge in terms of competitiveness. How do you match the AI revolution and the extraordinary energy it consumes with our challenges between now and 2030? Because the hope is that we do get, and there's 2 auctions have been successfully done in terms of wind energy, to Deputy Brennan's point. Notwithstanding the change, we had to set up MARA in the last government. We had to set up a whole new infrastructure to deal with offshore wind energy and maritime planning. We've done that now. It needs to move fast. 2 auctions have gone off the ground. I think there's a very good chance that they'll be there, hopefully in production, by 2031. We don't need any objections to those offshore wind farms, because that wind is the only option for Ireland in the context of the existential climate change that we face. But there will be a need for a transition fuel, and that transition fuel will be gas. And there's no point in pretending otherwise. It will be there. It will be needed. And we need reality to come true. And when I say, when I talk to people, and I think the debate in here is just miles away from reality. There's no attempt at all to try and deal with the issues and the interdependent issues. And yes, the challenges that come with it. But it's just demonise data centres. If you demonise data centres, every day-to-day usage that people use, their phones, their mobile phones, anything, comes to naught. I mean, that's the reality. It is fundamentally the reality. And in my view, you're fundamentally wrong in terms of what you're putting forward. And again, the Deputy Brennan raised regulatory hurdles and so on. We're doing everything possible through MARA to get the offshore wind through as quickly as we possibly can. And that will mean transposition of more EU directives in terms of there is a clause within the EU directive which, when all else fails, the overriding public interest clause, which should be invoked, in my view, in terms of offshore wind, because it's the most fundamental way this country can deal with climate. Absolutely, and renewables. Solar panels. Solar is moving fast now in Ireland, and I think can progress even further. Battery storage, fair point made by Deputy Farrell, although in board number 1 in the Midlands there are some developments on that one has happened. Other countries are using battery storage. You take Texas, it's not all oil in Texas. They will use wind, they will use nuclear, they will use battery storage and solar as well. They're going to use all of them. We're not as, we have, wind is our key ingredient. I think Deputy Batchik, again, when the Independent Planning Board on Board Pleanála makes a decision, if the government even dared intervene in a decision that would suit you and you would appreciate the outcome, you'd cry foul of government. I'm stunned today, twice now it's happened 2 or 3 times, that the Board Pleanála decision in respect of North Kerry is referenced and then very quickly conflated with as if the government did it. That's the impression you're giving. That's the impression all of you have given. You're giving the impression that an independent board, the Board Pleanála, made a decision as if it was government policy. And that is a false assertion to confuse people, to cloud it, because all you want to do is make the assertion that the government is rowing back on climate. That's all you want to do. And you'll use any instrument to do that. And it's a fundamentally dishonest political position to adopt. You either agree with the independence of Board Pleanála or you don't. And now I'm being asked to intervene in Board Pleanála. I'm being asked to intervene now in Board Pleanála by Deputy Batchik, I think. But you can't intervene in what way? You know what I mean? And this is what's wrong with the country. We don't accept the independent bodies that are established. We should. Because otherwise, would there be JRs, judicial reviews? And then we ask why we can't deliver infrastructure and get things moving in the country? It's because you're pandering all the time. And you're not really interested in terms of economic development. And I agree with Deputy... sorry. Yeah.